So let's get underway with our next guest and talk Eagles and some football. John McMullen, every night at 7:30. Follow him on Twitter at JF McMullen, PhillyVoiceSI.com. Listen to him daily, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Jody Mack on Birds 365. Johnny Mack, how we doing tonight, man?
Hanging in. How are you, Ryan?
Yeah, hanging in, man, hanging in. I'm enjoying all the sports action, man. Did you watch that Lakers game?
I did not. I was. There was a no-hitter going on, first in 24 hours, so I was trying to catch the end of that. That's so historic. It had been a full 24 hours. So, I still got that old school mentality. If I hear a no-hitters going on, I want to see the end, to see if the guy can. And Corey Kluber was able to nail it down, but yeah, I guess it's not as exciting as it once was.
Yeah, I'm with you. I still like to tune in and see if whoever's dealing can pull it off. But man, that playing game actually delivered entertainment-wise. LeBron was a baby. He got poked in the eye. Captain Insano shows no mercy, and he's saying he was seeing 3 rims. John, unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw the TV ratings. They were off the charts. So, that tells you the playing game isn't going anywhere. That's what that tells you.
No, it's certainly not. But it's a blessing and a curse that they got, that matchup for this year. I said last night we just witnessed the greatest playing game in the history of the play-in, and that's not a joke because it's in its first year. I just don't think that can ever be duplicated.
Kind of a joke.
Yeah, it is a joke, a bad one.
But I hear you. It's LeBron. It's Steph Curry. You're not always going to get that type of matchup, but
no.
I guess it's okay. I just got to get used to it. I guess it keeps more teams involved, and in theory, that keeps more fan bases involved, and I don't think it hurts, the top seed like the Sixers. I mean, they get to sit and wait for people, so I guess it's okay. I mean, you already have too many teams in the playoffs anyway, so you might as well invite more, I guess.
Yeah,
go the hockey
invite.
route.
Right, and you get an invite, All right, talking about something that's just okay, maybe. The Eagles defense, and they have a new DC among everything else, Jonathon Gannon, and you wrote about this on SI.com, fresh off the press here, John. Eagles' new DC plans of installing schemes to fit his talent, and the headline is, the Eagles didn't hire a scheme with Jonathon Gannon. So what did they hire?
We'll see. I mean, Jonathon was really good in the press conference. We talked about it when coaches are bad, good. It doesn't really mean anything, but he handled it well. He's a very insightful guy, very smart guy. The rare volunteering of information and thinking about questions instead of so many times you just get coach speak. So, I mean, you can see why teams around this league really like him. And he was, unlike Nick Sirianni, for instance, I mean, he got an interview with the Eagles and to his credit, convinced Jeffrey Lurie, but there wasn't a lot of interest in him. There was no interest in him for other jobs. Jonathon had a lot of interest in becoming a defense coordinator, obviously a step lower. But you can see, and I said if he were an offensive coach, he'd already be a head coach. That's how well he handles things and handles people. And everybody's obviously looking for, Sean McVay clones, and he's very young, and that plays into it. But we'll see. I mean, he says all the right things, and I've heard coaches say the right things in the past, and ultimately they default to what they believe in, and they try to pound the square peg in the round hole, so to speak. So we'll have to see, just like any other coach, how he handles it. He's up against it from a talent standpoint, no question about that. He's got a good defensive line, and that's it. And then he's got to cobble everything together in the back seven. So he's got a tough job, and we'll see if he's up to it.
Yeah, I have a couple different opinions on this. One, I think it's great. Some of the greatest coaches of all time are able to adapt and adjust based off their personnel. You scheme and game plan accordingly. And I think that's really, for the most part, what you should do. And I think that's also a front office's dream. You don't have, a guy who's maybe even highly regarded doing it for 30 years one way, saying, you need to get me this type of guy or else we won't be successful. So I look at it that way, but then I look at this year's Eagles roster on defense and say, man, if he doesn't have a scheme, I think that style for this team, John, makes it more challenging.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's not that he doesn't have a scheme. I think his philosophy is he's got a number of different schemes, and he's going to go and take from all of them depending on, what his players and who's got to play that week does well, which I think, is the Belichickian, so to speak, way of doing things. A lot of people talk about it. Very few do it. And I do, talk all the time about organizations and franchises as a whole. And it's become a cliche around the league that if you hire a scheme, meaning if you hire a guy because of his scheme, because of what he runs, you're doing it wrong, whether it's head coach, offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, whatever. But then they do it. They go hire a scheme, so to speak, and it usually blows up. So, all you can do is take Jonathon at his word. He hasn't been a defensive coordinator before, so you don't have a history. And we'll see if he defaults to, cover 2, cover 3. If he just runs the same thing every week, he is just giving us lip service. But if he does become more multiple, and he talked a lot about Mike Zimmer today, and Matt Eberflus, and even guys like Emmett Thomas and Jerry Gray. These are guys that had a big imprint on him as a very young coach coming up through the ranks. And if he does take something from Zimmer, something from Eberflus, something from those guys, and you see different packages each week, I think I think at the bare minimum, I think it'll be a little bit exciting for Eagles fans. And we're going to have to see. I mean, the Ryan Kerrigan signing's another one that kind of makes you think that things might be heading into a positive direction, because I do think the Eagles are looking for sort of this hybrid pass rusher, stand-up pass rusher, and Ryan did that a lot in his career. They drafted, as we said, it's a 7th-round pick. I wouldn't get excited about that. And Patrick Johnson, but nonetheless, it's pretty evident they're looking at him as a stand-up rusher. It might be Jannard Avery, it might be Joe Osman. So it looks like they're going to do some different things, and hopefully he's telling us the truth, and it's not just coach speak.
Jim Schwartz was, for lack of a better way to put it, old school. He would call guys out in meetings and say, you don't jump off sides. Don't be an idiot. He was hot-headed. He called it like it was for the most part. That's just the easiest way to describe him. And it seems like Gannon is the complete opposite.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think, you want to hold players accountable. I think from a player perspective, I don't think they have any problem with being held accountable for, say, inside a meeting room. I think, they'll get upset if you do it to the media, and say so and so screwed up, or but coaches are usually savvy enough now, other than maybe Adam Gase, to not do that. So I don't know. I mean, you can talk about players, coaches, hard asses, whatever, and you go back and forth with that sentiment. I think as long as you're fair, and that's part of the football culture. I mean, I don't think people understand. If you go back to high school football, if people played in high school even, I mean, they'll call you out if you make a mistake. And, the worst thing you can do, if you have a bad game, you're dreading film work because everybody's going to see it and it's going to be pointed out. So they're kind of used to that stuff.
The defensive line, I mean, it's hard to maybe get any of these answers because from what you wrote and from what you're detailing here, he is going to adapt. He has a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas. He's going to take things from multiple people that he's worked with that's been in the game a long time. But how do you think he will go about using the depth on the defensive line to his advantage?
Well, he did. That's one of the things he made pretty clear, that he wants a significant rotation, probably even more so than Jim Schwartz ran. Jim would always talk about a rotation, but it would come to the guts of the game. Every year I could, hear the Eagles saying we got to limit Fletcher Cox's snaps, for instance. But then you're in a tight game, and let's be honest, most NFL games are tight in the fourth quarter. It's not college. There's so many one-score games in this league. And then all of a sudden you need your best players on the field, and Fletcher stays out there and Brandon stays out there. And, those snap numbers keep piling up and piling up and piling up. What he said today is that he wants a significant rotation, and everybody's going to be up on game day, is going to play. And that's to keep the guys fresh for the fourth quarter. Again, that's easy to say. I've heard that so many times from so many defensive coordinators, and what happens is just what I said. You get in a game, and look, Hassan Ridgeway's out there, and somebody's driving on you in a one-score game. You start thinking to yourself, oh, we got to stop this team. We got to get Fletcher back out there. And all of a sudden, this good idea to keep him fresh is down the drain. So you can say whatever you want to say in May, but can you get competent enough play from backups to limit the snaps of guys like Fletcher and Brandon? I don't know if that's possible, to be honest.
Talking with John McMullen, our NFL Eagles insider. We do this every night on The Fix for your football fix at 7:30. Follow him on Twitter at JFMcMullen. So Shane Steichen also spoke today, John. Is that accurate?
Yeah, all the coordinators did. Shane and also Michael Clay, who's the special teams coordinator. So, yeah, our first sort of visit with the coordinators. And I'll tell you how honest Jonathon Gannon was, because these guys have been in place for 4 months, and we've been saying, why can't we talk to the coordinators? Why can't we talk to the coordinators? And Jonathon, probably to the angst of the Eagles, got on there and said, hey, I've been wanting to talk to you guys. They've been keeping me away from you, the Eagles PR department, because they don't have to do it in the offseason, so they don't want to do it. And he's volunteering information, as I said, and I'm interested to see how long that continues. Because, I always see it with rookie players. They're very engaging. They're just happy to be there. And then after a couple of weeks, they get ground down. They start answering, very flippantly and move along quickly and turn into different people. It tends to happen with coaches as well. Although Shane was the offensive coordinator with the Chargers. He's already got the coach speak down. He's in mid-season form. He's just coach speak, coach speak, coach speak.
I mean, the Jalen Hurts quote yesterday, not to get sidetracked, but the rent is due every day. I mean, I love the mentality, but to come out and say it behind a mic is a little corny. It's like throw me to the sheep or throw me to the wolves, and I come out leaving the.
I'll tell you, Jalen knows how to do it. I was impressed by Jalen Hurts. I said that on Hurts 365. I said he's got all the intangibles. You're right, but he's got all these one-liners, like in the holster. It's almost Chip Kelly-like in that way. Chip had a ton of. I always used to joke, Chip prepared too much for press conferences. Should have prepared more for actual football games. Jalen's been well versed, and I think it's Nick Saban, to be honest with you. Really, really prepared him well for situations like that. And they are a little bit corny. He threw out we're hungry and we don't plan on missing meals later as well.
Yeah.
And, he's talked about rat poison in the past. He's got 1 million of them. But he's just really good. And he handles stuff really well. And, not all quarterbacks do. You saw a quarterback who struggled a little bit more. But I was Ricky Henderson in the Jalen Hurts press conference. I was leading off, so and I asked him, about the commitment of this organization to him, and that, that would throw off some people, and that would maybe even I don't want to say anger, but maybe create a little uncomfortableness. Didn't miss a beat, man. He's got everything you need from an intangible standpoint. I was talking about this with Barrett Brooks today as well, but can he play? If he can play, if he's got the skill set, if he's got the traits, he's going to be a really, really good quarterback because he has the other stuff, the leadership, and again, we live in this analytical world now where everything's numbers. If you can't put a number on it, people don't think it matters. It does matter. It does matter. Who was talking about it today? It might have been Miles. It might have been Miles Sanders, who, by the way, was really in a good mood today. But he mentioned Jalen Hurts went around to everybody on this team and got their phone numbers. Everybody. Defense players, not just receivers, not just running backs, not just his offensive line, people he doesn't even deal with. That's the kind of savvy he has as a young player, as a young quarterback. I mean, it really does matter. And that's why I've said from day one, I told people, everybody loves this guy. Everybody loves him. That's an intangible.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these analytics people are going to say, oh, that doesn't matter. It does matter.
Yeah.
It really does. Now, if you can't play at all, then it doesn't matter. But
but he can play enough.
Is when you say it doesn't matter, if a superstar, but somebody of the traits of Aaron Rodgers, it has the personality of Jalen Hurts, well, then you've got a colossal grand slam home run of a player. Instead, you have a great player, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's also a pain in the you-know-what. There's a lot of people who can't stand him. And, you talk about how does Aaron Rodgers only have one Super Bowl? Well, maybe that's the reason. It's only one. Maybe it would be 4 or 5. I'm not going to go to Brady levels, but...
Not 1, not 2. No, and, we talked about this last night, John, and I agree. And I think, I said this last night, I'll say it again, I think that is the most important thing, and it's not something that you can go work out at the local park, and get better at. You can't go to the weight room. You can't throw. You can't run routes. You can't study film, like whatever it is. And I think he's, you say we don't know if he can play, but I think we already know he's good enough. And I say good enough by saying...
when I say don't know he can play, I meant at a high level.
Right.
He's an NFL quarterback. He can do a lot of things with his leg. You've seen him make plays. You've seen him put juice in the offense.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure what we're talking about. Are we talking about, a 31 out of 32 as Pro Football Focus rated him, or are we talking about a potential, top 10? I don't think he could go much higher than that, but that's what I'm talking about. Obviously, he's an NFL quarterback. I don't mean it in that way. I'm not sure he's got the accuracy to be a top-tier quarterback. That's my biggest concern, and that's what we have to see. But, I mean, and I'm not, Carson's gone. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. I say this all the time. I like him personally. I think people who know me know that, and he knows that. But the Eagles had to work with him on engaging with other players, that maybe he wasn't involved in on the defensive side of the ball, for instance, special teamers, 53rd guy on the roster. They had to tell him, look, you gotta get in that locker room. You gotta engage with the guys. Like, trust me, the Eagles aren't telling Jalen Hurts this. He knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it. He knows it. He innately knows he's the leader of the team, and he does this stuff on his own. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a skill. That's just like a personality trait. You either do that or you don't.
You see it all the time. You know people in your personal life. Everybody listening probably does. There's certain people that are introverts. There's certain people that are extroverts. And everybody knows somebody. Brandon Graham's the best example of this. Brandon Graham can light up any room in the world just by walking into it. I mean, he's got that type of personality. He's the only guy in the world that can light up a Zoom press conference. He shows up and the whole thing, there's energy to it. Everybody's happy. Everybody's smiling. He's one of those types of guys. It's rare. And Jalen Hurts isn't that. He does it in a different way. I just mentioned, he's very understated in public. He's very, as said, his pulse doesn't move in these press conferences. But behind the scenes, everybody loves him. All his teammates love him. And it's because he goes that extra mile. Look, anybody who's been around a football team knows the quarterback is the quarterback, and he sort of stands alone. And for that reason, you have all these, prima donna quarterbacks that we've been talking about all off season. They've been catered to, like, since high school, like NBA stars. They're set apart. There's everybody else, and then there's the quarterback. And when the quarterback engages you as, as I said, the 53rd man on the roster, that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what Jalen does with people.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And even what I was saying before, like, I knew what you were saying, and I was just adding that those intangibles, John, I'm curious to see how much that bumps him up. So, I don't know. This is just hypothetical random. Let's say he's the 18th best quarterback in his skill set on the field with his play, but those intangibles can bump you up. And, does that bump him up to 8th? Does it bump him up to 14th? I hate to throw this name out there, but look at what Tim Tebow was able to do. Tim Tebow stinks, all right? And at least for a season with Denver, you have to give him some credit. Those intangibles, and yeah, they tailored everything around him, but you kind of get the point I'm trying to make with that.
Yeah, and I don't even think I think you could look to the greatest quarterback of all time, and that's the other end of the spectrum. And by no stretch of the imagination am I trying to say Jalen Hurts can get to Tom Brady levels, because nobody can. And I just said Aaron Rodgers can't. So that's something that'll probably never be done again in the history of football. Tom Brady's never been the most talented quarterback in football his entire run. Not once. Not once. Now, he's tremendously talented. He's been able to do so many different things. But if you go through every year, you will see a more talented player playing the quarterback position. What put him over the top? Can't define it. What does that mean? That's an intangible.
Yep. It's exciting and it's fun. And I think, like Lane Johnson came out and said, like last year has been marinating and sitting with us every single day. He's going to come in hot and ready and ready to try and turn things around. So there could be multiple leaders. It's not going to be awkward, no ego. It seems like at least we're in May. It's May 20th, I know, but it seems like that locker room at the very least is going to be really solid with a potential to be one, to be a unit. And that's something they haven't had.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just, I talked yesterday with Jason Kelsey about this. Part of it is, you get a little complacent under the same coaching staff for a while, and there is some newness when you make changes, and that naturally brings into account some excitement, for lack of a better term. And I think that's what you see is going on. I think when you look at it from a national perspective, and everybody, kind of looks at this team and says it's not going to be very good, I think it's directly traced to what they see at, the head coach who's not experienced and, maybe didn't come across well in press conferences, and the quarterback, who, as we said, Pro Football Focus ranked number 31 and 32. So those people are looking at, well, they're going to have bad coaching, they're going to have bad quarterback play, so they're going to be a bad football team. I kind of look at it the other way. I think, they're going to be better than almost everybody thinks because the quarterback's not as bad as people think, or some people think, and the coach is not as bad as some people think. So this is ripe for overachieving. The question is, how much can they overachieve? And that, I think, has to relate to the offensive and defensive lines. If they stay healthy, I think they have a chance to overachieve pretty significantly, to be honest.
John McMullen will talk about it every step of the way at 7:30 on The Fix. Follow him at JF McMullen. Listen to him on Birds 365, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday to Friday, on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, phillyvoice.com. Johnny Mac, I appreciate it, man. We'll wrap up the week tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Yep, thank you. There he is, Johnny Mac. Good stuff. As always, the coordinators finally spoke.